Before we get started, I just wanted to make a couple of changes on the schedule, class schedule. Okay. So if you want to pull out or open up your class schedule, um, the guest speaker that we have scheduled is Deborah Taylor, and she will be speaking to us on February 25th. So that is week 8. Okay. So, guest speaker, let me write that down. Taylor. Okay. And I'm going to put this on slideshow. Okay. So again, how to cite work of other authors when you are adding it to a response or even when you are writing an academic paper. Okay. Um, I just wanted to go over the basics with you. There's different ways of citing references, but I just want to be able to touch on those things that are important. All right. Oh, I forgot to add point 6. So the reason why we cite papers is multiple reasons. All right. One being that when I'm reading a paper, or when anyone is reading a paper, they need to be able to locate and be able to know who your sources are when you are making a point. Okay. Because again, for us to be able to, as readers, read your paper, and when you're citing a point, we want to know, well, what evidence do you have? Okay. Are you getting this idea? Where are you getting this information? So this is one of the reasons why I'm saying, looking at nursing itself, it's all about scientific evidence. And so I think we need to start looking at that when we write responses and when we write academic papers. Okay. The other is that we need to be able to give credit or recognize the work of the author. And that author can be the textbook that we're using, which is Beth Perry Black. It can be a journal. It can be a research. It can be study. Whatever it is that we're referencing, we need to be able to give that individual credit for the work that they've done. And again, it goes back to being able to provide strong evidence for your point of view. So again, when I say strong evidence, I mean that it's not something that you just pulled out of the top of your head to write down on a piece of paper. We want to be able to know that your ideas, your concepts were developed or were created based on evidence or papers or research or literature that you have read. So again, this is one of the main reasons, is to be able to provide strong evidence. And also when you write something, it's to really separate your ideas from that of the author of which you read that article or that research paper or that book. Now, I know that a lot of this is like, well, why do we have to know this, right? This is just a nursing class. Why is it important for us to be able to understand all this? And the reason why I'm bringing it up to you is because as you progress in your nursing career and in your academic journey, you will be asked to write papers, and those papers have to be written in a way that is not only clear and concise, but shows evidence to your points and your ideas and concepts that you are trying to write in your papers. Okay. So also to show that you've read the work of other authors. And that you're not just citing it because, oh, the title looks like it's close enough, but you have actually read it and you've analyzed. Number 6, basically, and I forgot to write this, so I apologize, is that, again, what we want to make sure is that to provide a connection between your ideas, your concepts, with that literature, which proves to be evidence to your point, but building a connection, okay? So again, why am I telling you this? It's because to help build that foundation of future classes that you're going to have, and you're going to be asked to write an academic paper, okay? And my way of introducing this to you is when I ask you for your response, that you cite your resources only, for a statement that you make or whatever. And for the most part, what I'm asking you is to cite your resources from the textbook, okay? Or from the required reading literature like Men in Nursing, to cite those references as well. You're welcome to go outside of that and look and Google literature if you'd like, but whatever it is, if you're going to cite their ideas and their thoughts for that author that you've read that material, you have to also give them credit for that as well, okay? There are different types of formatting styles. And the formatting styles that are the most common are the uh, APA style, right? And the APA style is American Psychological Association. It's commonly used for citing sources in scientific and medical and research papers. The way this is formatted provides the reader to be able to read a very concise and clear paper that provides very simple language as well. Another common formatting style is the Modern Language Association, which is called the MLA, which is commonly used for citing resources when you're writing papers in humanities, art history, or philosophy. This also provides standardized, clear, and concise way of writing that provides the reader the understanding of what you are trying to convey in your papers. For our class today, and for future responses that I'm going to ask you to write, I'm going to use the APA format of providing me your references when you write your second case study. Okay, so what does this look like? You can write your references in a citation, meaning you can write it in the body of your sentence. Okay, so example number one. Parenthetical citations include the author's last name and the year of publication within the parentheses at the end of the sentence. So what you see here is an example is, and again, I just kind of made this up, is Florence Nightingale's work and early publication has greatly influenced the development of nursing profession and is recognized as a Lady of the Lamp. What you see in highlight here is, again, in parentheses, I use Black, who is the author of our textbook, and also a comma after her name with the year that the textbook was published, and I use 2024. Okay. The second example that I want to show you is that your reference can be part of a narrative in your sentence. And again, this includes the author's last name and the year that the work was published. But for this example, the writer starts out with according to Black, and then in parentheses, the year that the work was published. And Florence Nightingale's work and early publications has greatly influenced the development of the nursing profession and is recognized as a lady with a lamp. So there are two different ways of citing your references in a sentence, okay, depending on how you start your sentence. So I'm going to pause here and see if there are any questions. I can't see your chat. So if you wrote something in chat, please share it. Okay, I'm not hearing anything. All right. So if you decide in your next case study number 2 that you want to write a list of preferences that you use to write your response, you can do that at the end of your discussion in case study number 2. And a couple of you did that in the last case study. However, there are certain ways of which it is supposed to be written, okay? And again, this is based on the APA format. So if you are referencing a book, such as our textbook, the way it is written in a reference list is as you see here. You put the author's last name and then a comma, their first and last initial, if it's in the textbook, with a period after the initials, and then the year that the book was published, in parentheses, followed by a period. You double space, and then you put the title of the book, and in this case, it has a 10th edition, and this you can see is italicized, okay? And then a period at the end, and then the name of the publishing company. And for this example, it is Elsevier Incorporated, and there's a period at the end. Okay. There's a reason why it is written this way, because it is the requirement for the APA format. If you use a journal in print, so you have an academic journal that you happen to have on your desk and you're going to use it, and you're going to cite material from that, you need to put all the author's name on there with their last name first, followed by a comma, their first initial, period, and a comma, and then list all the other authors that have written that article, okay? The last name of that individual, in between the second to the last, there has to be an ampersand, followed by the last name of the author, a comma, the first and last initial, and there's a period after the first and last initial. And then you have the name, the year that the journal was published, and the in parentheses, followed by a period. Next, you write the name of the article. In this case, in my example, it's exploring explanations for the female-male earnings difference among registered nurses in the United States. And there's a period after the title. Sorry, that's the name of the article. And then I switched that. I'll make this correction because I'm going to share this. I'm going to put this slide deck in the announcements for you. And then the name of the journal at the end, italicized. Number 3 is the volume, followed by the parentheses of the issue number, and then a comma, and then the pages. In this case, it's 2014 and 2023, okay? Here is an example of articles that you find in an electronic journal. Again, it is, man, I did this late at night. That's why I see a couple of mistakes here. I apologize, but I'll correct this. Again, it's the patient's, the author's last name, followed by a comma, the first initial, followed by a period and a comma, and then you have the year of the journal, the month and the date, the title of the article, in this case is Foundational Principles of Trust, the name of the journal in parentheses, okay, it is the ARN journal, the official voice of perioperative nursing, It is volume 120, issue 6, pages 1 through 6. And this is where you provide the URL, where you receive that or where you retrieve that journal. Okay. So another way is if you have an electronic source, meaning when you Google something and you see an article on Google, but it's not part of an electronic journal, this is how you resource or you write your references, okay? Either way, you have not only the author, but also the title of the page and also the site name, if you have the site name, and then also your URL. What this allows the reader to do when you write your references is that I can go back here and I can go, is that really what Florence Nightingale has said in this article? And so I can go back and I can research or pull this article and say and read it for myself. Okay. But this again is evidence to what you're trying to say. So that way it becomes very your points are very strong. Okay, I am going to pause there. I'll make these corrections and I will put these slide decks on the announcements page. But again, I'm going to open it up for discussion. I don't see anything here. All right. Does everyone understand what I'm looking for when I ask you to put references? I don't need a whole slew of references, but I only need to have at least two, okay? If you're using an electronic source, you do have to put all the authors' names, their last name, comma, followed by by their initials. So you have to put it all. Okay. All right. Like I said, this is a little more information for you. And again, you may be asking, why in the world is she telling us this? This is nothing that has to do with nursing, when in fact it does. And again, as you pursue your nursing career and you advance in your academic endeavors, these papers that are going to be written, you will be asked to write probably in the APA format. Some universities ask for an MLA format, but there are specifics to how to write it. And because I've asked you to include references in your discussion and to introduce it to you, and I apologize, I should have introduced it to you a little earlier. This is how you would write it and the examples that I'm given. Okay. At least you will know when in your future classes, if your instructors or your professors say, you need to write it in this format, you need to give me references, at least you can draw back in memory and say, oh yeah, I remember Anita saying something about that and I just didn't pay attention, but I think I think I remember. Okay. So, all right. I'm going to share my screen again. And I'm going to now jump into our discussion for today. And I'm going to move this over here, put it in slideshow. Okay. So a little bit today about nursing theory and science. And again, I'm only going to touch the surface of this. And the reason why I only touch the surface of it is because of the fact that when you go into your nursing program, you will have uh, more introduction to nursing theory. When you go into your BSN and your master's program, you'll have a class on nursing theory and you'll really delve into it. There are multiple nursing theories that we can discuss. It'll take us a whole quarter, if not 2 quarters, to discuss all the nursing theories that there is, but I'm going to just introduce to you the importance of why we do have nursing theory in our profession as well. Okay, so you all know who this is. This is the picture of Florence Nightingale. And Florence was credited as being the first nurse researcher. And as I said, due to the work that she developed during the Crimean War, she was able to provide the mortality and morbidity data of soldiers that she had taken care of. She believed that nursing practice should focus on the relationship between the patient and also their surroundings. So you can see here that part of her recommendation is that patients should have not only clean air, but also a temperature-controlled environment, which is really interesting because in those days they didn't have air conditioning, right? But I think to her point, what she's trying to say is that you need to be able, or the patient needs to be in a room that is at least comfortable and not too extremely hot or too extremely cold, but in a temperature where not only are they comfortable, but their wounds are able to heal. She also felt from her observations, and again, she's talking about the patient and their environmental surroundings, right? Um, she's saying that in order for a patient to be able to heal properly is not only should they have access to direct, and I'm going to say indirect sunlight as well, but also be an environment where there is no noise or minimal noise. If you've ever been in a hospital before and if you've ever tried to sleep at night, there may be late visitors and they're making a lot of noise, or nurses around the nursing unit making so much noise that it's almost impossible for you to sleep or any patient to sleep, right? So this is why she's saying, based on her observation, is there needs to be no noise or minimal noise when a patient is trying to recover. The room should be kept clean, which obviously, yes, it has to be because we want to make sure that there is a decreased risk of infection or cross-contamination from patients or from people going in and out of the room as well. And this is why she's saying that the bedding or the linens that the patient is lying on should be changed at a regular basis. Because again, depending on what kind of illness the patient has, there is dead skin that falls on the sheets. There may be blood on the sheets. And so we don't want that to be a hindrance to the patient's recovery. So this is why she's saying that. And also what she's saying is that patients should be kept clean. And again, you want to think about infection, right? And nurses should be able to wash hands frequently. I think I've said this to you before, but we wash our hands constantly. We have to wash our hands in between patients because we don't want to transfer what is from one patient with our hands, those germs or those microorganisms, when we go to the next patient and we start caring for that patient as well. So we want to make sure that our hands are clean, and either by washing it with soap and water, or we use that alcohol antiseptic as well. I have to say that this has been a constant issue in some of the hospitals because the fact that nurses and also physicians neglect to wash their hands. When I go to the doctor's office, if I see that the physician or the nurse practitioner or even the medical assistant, when, sorry, when they wash their hands, or when I see that they don't wash their hands, I mention it to them. And I say, I'm sorry, but can you please wash your hands before you start talking to me or before you start taking my blood pressure or whatever? And they give me this strange look, but it's like, it's okay if you're going to give me a strange look because this is me and I want to make sure that wherever you were at in another examining room that you're not going to bring it to me. So I'm okay with that if they give me this strange look, right? But anyways, this again is the work that Florence Nightingale had developed when she was in the Crimean War. And believe it or not, this is still true today in our world of nursing. I've showed you this data before, and this is part of her data that she used to really look at ways of trying to see how they can decrease the amount of deaths or morbidity in the that occurred during the Crimean War. And with that data, what improvement in nursing practice could she and her nurses develop so that way they can transfer that practice of safety into other environments and other areas of patient care, of nursing care. She, again, with this information and with this data, she developed also or created her own nursing theory. So, as I said, there are multiple nursing theories that we can talk about, and I will not do that because we just don't have the time for it. And you really have to be very, very knowledgeable in a lot of these theories of being very transparent. I'm not knowledgeable in a lot of the nursing theories because there's too many of them. But I wanted to give you just a foundation of what is in every nursing theory. And what you can see here is that the meta paradigms or the concepts that need to be part of a nursing theory are four components, and that is health, person, environment, and nursing. So, what does that mean? First of all, when we look at the health, we need to identify again the health of the patient. Okay, it's relative to the person. That means we need to be able to define in the patient's perspective their values, their beliefs, their cultures, and it varies from person to person. And so this is part of the health that incorporates that person when developing a theory. Okay, the person is the patient. And that patient doesn't have to be one person. It can be a family, it can be a community. Because if you are a pediatric nurse or a labor and delivery nurse, you're going to have those parents or the moms and the dads. They're going to be part of you, the part of your patient. If you're going to be a public health nurse, then the community is your patient. So don't restrict um, the person or a patient to only one. It can be multiple. The environment is that environment of which the patient lives. Okay. So when we talk about that, what type of um, home does this patient have? Does this patient have any support? Does patient live in a environment that is clean? Is it in a safe neighborhood? So again, you want to look at not only inside the home, but also outside in the community as to the environment that this patient is in, because this is important when you develop your nursing care plan for this patient, is you need to take into account all these things. And then also nursing, meaning you as a nurse, what is your, like I said, your nursing care plan? What is your treatment? How are you going to educate this person? These are all the paradigms or the common components or elements that you will find in every single nursing theory. Okay, so nursing is no different than any other profession that has a theory. Nursing is used to explain an event, or a theory is used to explain an event or a situation or justify an action or a behavior. And so one of the reasons why we have nursing theory is because nursing is based on a solid body of nursing knowledge. Okay. And that serves as a foundation for our nursing practice. And also it provides us the evidence of practice of the reason why we do things in nursing, and the reason why we care for our patients is because, again, that foundation of knowledge based on a solid nursing learnings that help us with our nursing practice. One of the other reasons why nursing theory is so important is that it also is significant in the development of academic curriculums in the nursing programs as well. Okay, so those are really a couple of the reasons why it's important that we do have nursing theory. But most of all, take away from this, it's a body of knowledge that we have that creates the evidence to help us practice our nursing, and also the fact that it helps the nursing programs develop a curriculum based on the nursing theory that they use in their program as well. Other aspects of the reason why nursing theory is so important is, again, it helps us make sound clinical judgments when we care for our patients, and it's based on evidence. So again, this is what I'm trying to do, is I'm trying to connect you with the fact that evidence-based practice is important in nursing, as it is in medicine, as it is in healthcare. And so my way of doing it is not only introducing this to you, but also in your assignments is to start thinking about the evidence that you have read, and to show me that evidence by listing your references, okay? So this nursing theory also, again, allows us to make clinical judgments. And those clinical judgments is your assessment, your planning, and your evaluation. And it is linked back to the systems theory. If you remember, that we had talked about systems theory, and there was an input and an output, and also a evaluation and feedback. So it's starting, this is what we're starting to do when we make our clinical judgments, or when we make our critical decision making, is that nursing theory allows us to take these steps. Okay. Nursing theory, as I said again, and I'm going to reiterate this because it's really important for you to know, is that it helps with developing the nursing school criterion and their programs for nursing. It also helps to guide nursing practice, and also it allows us as instructors to teach you as prospective and future nursing students the reason of nursing, why we practice the way we do. It also allows us to be able to explain what nursing practice is and how it differs, and how it compares to other healthcare disciplines like physical therapy, like medicine, like occupational therapy, all those other healthcare disciplines that really are very, very connected to nursing. But at the same time, nursing is different from theirs because of what we do. It provides us the ability to be autonomous through education and research. And again, your professional autonomy will be dependent on, also based on your level of education as you continue to grow in your nursing practice, and also if you continue to gain your academic credentials, you will have gained more and more autonomy because of it. And then most importantly, of course, it allows us to develop a lot of our analytical skills, allows us to look at and and really develop our critical thinking skills as well in order for us to be able to make decisions for our patients in the right way. Okay. I think that it really sums it up here where nursing theory supports not only reasoning, but also our critical thinking, our decision making, and also evaluating the patient outcomes. As you can see here, these are certain steps of what nursing theory supports. And if you look back on the systems theory, it's very similar to what we had talked about in the very beginning when we talked about systems theory, is that it has certain elements and components of being able to look at what we need to do as nurses, but having the opportunity to look at how the outcome was and being able to evaluate it and see if there's any other further steps that we need to take when we see whether or not the outcome that we had wanted was in fact appropriate or not, and then going back and thinking whether or not we need to tweak it. Okay, so before I go into the different levels of theory, is there any questions that you have or anything in chat? Okay, I don't see anything. Okay. So, there are different types of theories that are developed. Okay. And the way I'm trying to explain this is by use of this pyramid. I love pyramids, right? As you can tell in my illustrations along the way, I've used pyramids a lot. But there is the practice theory, there is a middle range theory, the grand theory, and then the meta theory. And then if you see the top of my pyramid, I put like the clouds there, and then on the right it says there's an arrow, more abstract and more concrete. So this gives you really an illustration of how far theoretical a theory can be versus the type of theory that is more down to earth, more practical, right? So the meta theory is really very, very abstract. We don't use it a lot in nursing. And a lot of the nursing theorists stay away from that because, again, they want to be able to develop a theory where nursing and nurses can understand it and can be able to relate to it and be able to practice it and or put it into practice. Okay. The next theory is grand theory. It's also abstract, it's broader in scope, and however, it's complex. It doesn't provide the guidance that nursing needs in order to implement their patient care interventions. But instead, what it does, it provides more of a general framework and ideas about nursing. Okay, again, it's more abstract. Where you see the blending of theory and clinical practice is that of the middle range theory. Okay, it addresses more of what we as nurses should be doing or could do. And again, it is a perfect blend of abstract thinking, theoretical thinking with practical sense of implementation. Okay, practice theory is more narrow in scope, and it's more specific. It's used, but not used as often as the middle range theory because, again, it is a blend of both worlds. Okay, so if you want to become a theorist, I think where you would get the more bang for your buck is being developing a theory in that middle range aspect. Make sure that you understand the definitions of what a grand theory is versus a middle range theory. And again, middle range theory is that perfect combination of nursing research and nursing practice. And this, again, is part of our evidence-based practice. Okay. This is more definitions that you need to know. understand if you go back to that tree that I showed you before at the very beginning of this discussion, I showed you that tree of all the theorists, and let me go back if you don't remember it, and close your eyes. Okay, here you go. Um, so these health, person, environment are meta paradigms. And again, they are elements that are part of every nursing theory. This tree that you see here, the roots again are the meta paradigms. Florence Nightingale being the trunk of the tree because she is the first nursing theorist. And from there, the tree just grew to different types of, or different people, nurses that have developed their own theory as well. Okay, Papalau, Henderson, Newman, and I won't go to all that. I think in your textbook, it may touch a little bit on the type of theories these nurses developed. But again, the important thing for you to know is that you have these four meta paradigms in nursing theory. Okay, and I'm going to go back, close your eyes. Um, the definitions here I told you about. Understand what the definition of philosophy is, know that definition. That philosophy is a set of beliefs about the nature of how it works. For nursing philosophy, it puts all the concepts of that meta paradigm that we talked about, that I showed you, together. Okay. These are more definitions for you to know. The conceptual model, which is a framework that provides organizational structure that makes things a little more clear, makes the connections a little more clear between the concepts. So understand that. And what is a theory? And again, know the definition of theory, which is a group of related concepts and definitions and statements, and then know what your definition of propositions are. I can tell you that these definitions, a couple of them will be on your midterm. So that's why I'm saying know your definitions, okay? So evidence-based practice, I talked about it a lot because it's part of nursing, it's part of healthcare. I've always told my students, if you're going to really have a robust conversation with physicians and you're going to try to prove your point, make sure that you have your evidence. Make sure that you have your research study that you can tell them, hey, you know what, this is, I read this in such and such journal, and according to this author, blah, 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 this is what he studied and this is what he's written. I've been in many discussions with physicians and even uh, nursing leaders as well. And when I make a point in a meeting or just in conversation, they always ask me, what evidence do you have? What evidence do you have to prove what you're saying is in fact been written or may have the possibility of being true? And so this is why I'm saying to you, be prepared to have your evidence. And because again, you know, um, nursing and healthcare revolves around or develops through evidence-based practice, research, and study. And so this diagram that I'm showing you, evidence-based research starts with a thought and then a collection of data, and it develops into research. And that research, there's development of nursing interventions or nursing practices. Then you implement, then that interventions, there's nursing implementation based on that intervention. And then there comes patient outcome. And what you don't see here is evaluation, okay? Again, let me give you an example of how simplistically this works. If your patient is complaining about a fever, okay, you first collect data, and that data can be you touch their forehead, you touch their hand to see if they're very warm. That's part of data. That's part of your nursing assessment. Then the next thing you do is you take their temperature. Again, that's part of data. You are collecting data, okay? Because of the fact that you have proven that this patient has, in fact, a fever, because you've touched them, they feel very warm, and their temperature is high, you've collected your data. And the next thing you do is, okay, based on research, all right, what has been proven to lower the patient's temperature? And we know through research and historically, right, that if we give patient fluids, it lowers their body temperature. If we give patient Tylenol or aspirin, it can also help not only lower the temperature, but also relieve some of the muscle pain that they are having. So based on that research, our nursing action would be to provide patient fluids, okay? Give them the Tylenol or aspirin. Again, our nursing action, I just want to put a caveat to this, is that it has to be also have physician orders, because we can't implement those things unless we have physician orders, okay? But we implement those nursing actions once we get those orders in. Once we do that, then we have to go back and we have to evaluate the patient. We have to reassess the patient to see if what we had done for them or given them for medication or fluids has in fact worked, and that is our patient outcome. If it worked, then there is no other need for further intervention, okay? If it did not work, then we need to go back and also find out why didn't it work, okay? Do we need to go back to the physician and say, hey, we've done this for the last, what, day or 2 days? The patient's temperature hasn't come down. It's still at this temperature. There needs to be other things that I need to do for this patient, right? So again, it goes back to reassessing and reevaluating your patient. And all the things that we do is because it's based on evidence-based. Okay. Any questions on evidence-based practice? Okay. Different types. I know that you're not going to do any type of research, but just kind of understand that there's different types of research that is done. Maybe a few of you have done some research in your other courses or other degrees, if you have a double degree, that there's quantitative, qualitative types, there's mixed methods. And then also there is a definition that we use for all types of research, and that is called bias. And so what that means is that it refers to a systemic distortion of findings from your data, often resulting in issues based on the sample that you pulled from the data. Okay. Not going to go through this too much because again, this is just to let you know that this is some of the types of research that is being done in healthcare. Okay. What I do want you to know is the difference between deductive reasoning and inductive reasoning. Okay. That deductive reasoning is more generalized and an inference to an idea to a specific conclusion. That inference can be correct, but the conclusion can be wrong. So an example is this. All nurses are RNs, okay? Or everyone that wears a white coat is a doctor. Well, we know that's not true, but that's a generalized statement based on our observation, right? Um, uh, the other premise is John and Mary are nurses. Well, the conclusion is that John and Mary are nurses, so that means that they may be RNs. Well, that's not true because John may be an RN, but Mary may be an LVN. Okay, so again, it's very, very generalized. So that is deductive reasoning. Inductive reasoning is that you observe something and you observe it's a pattern and then you make a conclusion. Okay, so if you have a huge cookie jar and you ask someone to pull out the cookie, and every time they pull out a cookie, it's a chocolate chip cookie, when in fact, it could be a combination of chocolate chip cookie and sugar cookies that are in there. It just happens that the person just kept pulling chocolate chip cookies. Okay, so again, know the difference between inductive and deductive reasoning. Okay. Not going to go into that. What this is telling you again is that the reason why research is being done, at least nursing research for the most part, I'll only speak to nursing research, is for improvement of patient care. And with this continued research, then the treatments or the nursing interventions that may have been historical with research, we can do better. We can improve how we take care of our patients through nursing research. And that is based on evidence-based practice. Evidence-based practice is, again, improving the patient's care based on evidence from studies. And also, it includes with that patient care data. I have to change that too. With clinician expertise, those clinicians can be physicians, they can be nurses, they can be therapists, they can be anyone that would be stakeholders or would be important for us to speak to or to talk to, whatever, that are essential to the research or the study that we're doing. Also, the most important of all is patient preferences, that the evidence that we have, that we choose, and the intervention that we have come up with in our research and in our study, that the patient accepts it and also is willing to do it. Because it doesn't really matter if we have all these interventions, if the patient doesn't want to take on that intervention or doesn't want to be involved in this intervention, then it won't improve their health. It won't improve patient care. So it's important that the patient preferences are part of this evidence-based research as well. And so what does that look like? That may look like there may have to be some pilots, meaning pilot treatments that are being done to see if, in fact, it does, if patients do prefer it, if it does work, if we have the outcome that we need. Okay. And again, this is just a summary on evidence-based practice. So evidence-based practice is an element of critical thinking and a good means of improving clinical judgment. It focuses on effective interventions, and this, for us, it's nursing interventions. It helps improve nursing patient care, and also, again, it helps with that constant improvement in patient care so it doesn't go by the wayside. And how do we stay current with all this? We stay current with, again, continuing to educate ourselves, reading our journals, being part of professional organizations so we can network with individuals that are very much involved in evidence research and evidence studies as well. Okay. And it is essential, again, essential component for nursing education. Okay, I'm going to stop sharing. Oops. And are you guys? Again, our speaker is going to be on the 25th. You have your next case study due on March 11th. However, before that, on February 18th, we will have a midterm exam. Okay, we'll do a little bit of review the next time we meet also. Okay.